So I really don't like showing my face because I don't like cameras. It's not my favorite thing. I get too self-conscious about the way I look. So instead, I'm going to put pictures of my animals when I talk through things or show you my screen. Um, so yeah. So for this video, we're going to talk about how class works as a whole, what you need to be doing in order to be successful in class, where to find everything, all that jazz. So before we begin, go ahead and tell me, how do you think you graduate high school? So in elementary school and in middle school, the way you graduated each grade was you just got to move on to the next class just because you got older. It didn't matter if you did the work or if you actually understood what you were doing. It didn't matter if you missed years and years of school and never went and then came back. They would just put you in your age group level. Because when you're younger, that's what they find to be more important, is to be with the people your age. But it doesn't work like that in high school. In high school, you don't just get to move on. If you don't pass a course, you have to keep taking it, and you could be stuck in high school for years, until you're 21 years old and you're too old anymore to go to high school, because you have to pass all of the right classes before you can graduate. So then there's a list of classes you have to pass, and then on top of that, teachers have to submit these documents for the courses that you're in to prove that you've mastered certain competencies. So the word competency means skill, and it's a big word for skill, within a course. For example, in math, one of our competencies is to solve for x. So I don't know the list of all the classes you need to graduate, but I do know what you need for math in order to graduate. In order to graduate from high school math, you need to pass the first year of math. It's called integrated math. The reason why it's called integrated is because they take each skill and they introduce every single math skill in the first year at the easiest level. And then in the second year, they integrate the same skills at a harder level. And then by the third year, they integrate the same skills at an even harder, at its hardest level for high school math. Um, and so it used to work in a different way where, like, in Algebra 1, you did a whole topic at all of its hard levels, like every level of intensity, and then you moved on to the next topic. They do it this way to try to help you remember the topics. So it's like you see them all once here, and then you see them again. And so the same skills will keep coming up again and again throughout the 3 years of math. Then there's a fourth year of math. In this fourth year, can be absolutely anything. The district doesn't control it as much. Like, they write the test for these three classes. This fourth year, it's up to the math teacher. At our school, we do probability and statistics, and then we also do financial algebra. So you need to pass 4 years of math in order to graduate. However, each year has two halves. So integrated math 1, it has semester 1. So semester 1, which is the first half of the year. So that's usually like starting in August through December. Then there's semester 2. And semester 2 is the second half of the year, which is December to June. So for this one, for semester 1, you get 5 math credits, and it's its own class. So once you've passed semester 1, even at a different school, you never have to do it again. But then there's the semester 2 half of the class. Same thing for year 2. So there's both halves. There's semester 1's half, semester 2's half. Year 3 has 2 halves as well, and so does year 4. So there's semester 1 and semester 2. So really, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 math classes that you have to pass in order to graduate high school. Some of you might have passed some of these classes already in other schools or at FlowCrits. So I'm not saying there's 8 classes left for you to pass. Just in total in high school, there are 8 math classes for you to pass in order to graduate. So For the sake of simplicity, they shorten this. Instead of saying integrated math 1, semester 1, they will change it to say something like I am integrated math, I am 1, S1 for semester 1. So then this one would be I am 1, semester 2, so on and so forth. I am 2, semester 1, blah, blah, blah. So those are all the passes you have to, pass in order to graduate. But not only do you have to pass these classes are designed to also hit all of the competencies required to graduate. So in order to graduate, you have to prove, for example, that you are a master at solving for X. And solving for X is one of the skills in math. So in Math 1, Semester 1, the very first unit, we end up solving for X. However, then by Semester 2, you have to solve for X with systems. So it's like the same skill, but then they make it a little bit harder. By the second year of math, they want you to solve for X with quadratics. By IM2 year 2, they want you to solve for X with quadratics in a system. So it brings it back this whole systems idea again. And you'll understand what a systems is when you learn it. Then, by the third year of math, they want you to solve for X with trig functions. And then by semester 2, they also want you to do it with circles. So basically, as you can see, they take a skill, a competency that you have to prove mastery on. And then you have to prove mastery at an easy level, at a harder level, until you prove mastery on the whole entire concept throughout the 3 years of integrated math. And then your fourth year of math is just an extra opportunity to master some of these competencies if you haven't yet. And add to that portfolio to prove to the district, like, hey, I know what I'm doing, I'm able to graduate. Now, if you don't prove mastery on all of the skills, there are other ways to graduate. You can work with Miss Aisha, you can prove mastery on the SAT test. There's all these other forms, but the first way they want everyone to try to graduate is by proving mastery of the competencies in their classes and on the test that's within each class. Which is why you have to have at least 70% mastery on each competency before you're allowed to move on to the next test. So how do competencies work? Well, let's just take IM1 semester 1, the very first math class ever. I'm going to delete the rest of this. IM1 semester 1. Every unit, so there's unit 1, and I split it into 2 parts because it's too big for that first class. So unit 1A and 1B. Then there's unit 2, unit 3, and unit 4. So in order to pass this class, you have to take all 5 of these tests. And you have to get 70% or better on these tests. Each of the competencies that you have to prove mastery on are in these tests. So as long as you're getting a 70% or better, then you are proving mastery on your competencies, all the ones that are within this class. And then once you've learned them pretty well, and you have to learn them well, because if you don't, then when you see them in the next class, IM1 semester 2, then you're going to be really confused if you didn't learn it well at this level, and so on and so forth as you keep moving through your mathematical journey. So at Flow Crit, each one of our semesters so semester 1 is supposed to be from August to December. We split semesters in half into quarters. So between August and December this semester, we have 2 quarters. Quarter 1 is from August to October. And then quarter 2 is from October to December. For that reason, because we split it into quarters, you get credit at the end of quarter 1, even though you haven't finished the whole class yet. Because the whole class, it takes 2 quarters. So the credit you get at the end of the first quarter, once you pass this first half, it's called the lab half. And in the lab half, you get elective credit. And you need a certain amount of elective credits to graduate too. So it's still getting you credit towards graduation. It's just not part of your math credits, because this is where you get this is the credit half, and this is where you get your math credit for passing the whole semester, the whole IM1 semester 1. So here you can see I took the semester and I put a couple of the units in the lab half and the rest of the units in the credit half. And then at the end of this is where you take your final for the whole entire course. So because you have to master each competency at a 70% level, let's say you take a test and you don't do well on it. Well, then you'd have to keep working on that unit, and we would have to keep trying different practices and working together until you actually understand it at a 70% level before I'm even allowed to let you go on to the next one. And because of that, this class is self-paced, meaning you get to go at your own speed. Because if it takes you a while to prove mastery here on this unit, then that's what you need to be able to do that well enough so that then you can move on and understand the next unit. So that means that you'll redo tests, you'll edit things again and again until you have mastery over all the competencies. And remember, to prove mastery, you have to do the skill by yourself correctly. So over the years, we will collect the problems that you do alone on the quizzes and on the test to prove that you have mastery over each competency to submit to the district. Therefore, it's very important that you have an understanding of each thing you learn. For this reason, you are not able to go on to the next lesson until you can do the quiz from the lesson you are on at least a 70% level. And in the same way, you cannot move on from a unit until you pass its test at least a 70% level. What this means is that you'll keep editing your work until you have it mastered. There are no deadlines, there's no timeline. I'll keep working with you and giving you feedback until you understand it. However, you're going to set your own timeline called graduation. Depending on when you want to graduate, we have to figure out how quickly you have to get each class done in order to stay on track. So for math, you have to pass 4 years of math in order to graduate. So to navigate to the class, when you open Google, you're going to always start with going to Schoology. Then in the course, you're going to see 2 different math classes. This one that actually says math on it. So if you click on the one that says math, it's the math class you're in this quarter. But remember, this quarter is only half of the semester, half of the whole class. And this little course is only about this quarter specifically. So when you get here, you're going to start and you're going to find my contact information. All the teachers have this on their top of their page. Next is the course checklist, and this is where you're going to see everything you've done in the class so far and what you still need to do. But the important part is to come down here and it says this is where the classwork is. However, it says this is not where you find the work for this class, because you find it in the yellow course called Calkins Math. So there's a link right here, but also when you click course, you should see here the yellow Calkins Math class. So this is where all the work for the class actually is. I host all of my classes here, so I'm going to go here real fast so we can look at it. You see how it's like every single math class I teach every single semester. Keeping it all on this one page makes it so that when the quarter ends, this one is going to delete. But what if you're still working on work from that class? Well, I don't want that to delete away. So this one never deletes. Well, it doesn't delete for like 5 years. So it'll host all your work without it going away, no matter how long it takes you. Also, if you want to get ahead, if I only put the work in this class, you couldn't get ahead. But here, now if you want to move on to the next one, I can let you do that. So I'm going to go back to this course really fast and talk to you what will be here. So this class will only host your grade for the quarter that you're currently enrolled in. So the only benefit of going here is to check to see what your current grade is and the quarter you're in. But if you're behind or if you're ahead, then this grade doesn't really match up and it's not really what you want to look at. What you really want to look at is your checklist. So when you click here, you'll see a checklist and you should only see yours. And so this is my example one, and you'll see your little ID number. Then you'll click your ID number, and then you'll see checklist, and it will open your checklist. So something to point out, it says example, but it would say your name. IM1 just means Integrated Math 1, Semester 1. So this is for my IM1 Semester 1 checklist, but the concept's the same for all of them. So I'm going to explain what this looks like. So right here on the left is every single task you have to do in my class in order to pass it. And right now you can see it says right now all of them are missing because you haven't done any of them yet. So if I keep scrolling down, 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 you'll see all of them for the class. This, the purple half, is the lab half, the quarter one, the one we start with, the one that's just elective credit and not the actual math credit. Then you have to finish the second half, the quarter two work, is the yellow half. And then once you finish all this, then you'll finish the whole course and get credit for the first semester of math one for this class. So then at the top again, if you look over at this green section, this is the goal monitor. So this is how many days we have in school for quarter one. This is how many days we have in school for quarter two. So if you want to stay exactly on track, this is how many days you have. So together for the whole semester, there's 75 days to get work done. Well, if you look here, this is the number of tasks done, and you haven't done any of the tasks, obviously. And this is number of tasks missing. So right now we're missing 64 items. There's 64 different tasks in the first half, 72 in the second half, to say there's 136 altogether, which means that in order, and this one here tells you your goal. So the number of tasks per day that you need to get done right now is 2 per day, a school day, 2 per school day to finish the whole class out. Now, remember, this might change. Like, let's say you say, oh, I want to get the class done in 10 days. Well, that's a lot more. Now it's 7 per day to do that. So based on whatever goals you told me, I will update these numbers with how many days you want to spend on each part so that you can stay on track. And then as you do things, like let's say you go in and you do the welcome video and you watch it and you fill out the questions, and then I give you a grade. So now that this changes, look over here, what happened? The number of tasks done, it's not 0 anymore, it changed to 1. This went down from 64 down to 63. And now for the entire course, 1 is done, so 1 more dropped here. And then it would change this if the number of tasks per day needs to change based off you're ahead or behind, so on and so forth. And then every day, these will subtract away, like how many days left you have in the class. So then you can use this to stay on track of everything. So I'm going to go ahead and put the missing back, so it goes back. And so this is where we're going to keep track of where you're at, how well you're doing. Remember, you have to get 70% on every one of these quizzes in order to move on to the next lesson. Same thing with the test at the end. You have to get a 70% or better on the test to move on to the whole next unit. And yeah, this is basically your outline of the entire class. So then let's talk about where to find all these tasks at. Remember I told you that it's in the yellow class. If you go to this yellow class, there's a ton of stuff here. So let's just start talking through it all. First of all, at the bottom, you'll find the course checklist again. And you should find just yours, just like in the other one, so you can find it from both classes. This is last year's courses because I still have some students working on last year's courses. They're incomplete. And so you don't need to think about this unless you're working on one of these. This, Miss Sarah, I need help, is where you fill out a Google Doc survey to set up a Google Meet with me so that I can help you with your homework or with notes or anything that you don't understand. So this is to set up a time. This Math Tools is a fun little folder because it has things like a number line, a list of prime numbers, the online calculator. That's probably the most important. I moved it to the top just now. So this is a good good calculator. I also have a multiplication table, and I'll keep building this out, but this is a huge just tool section. And then finally, here's my 4 classes. You should only be able to see the one you're in. So then let's say I'm in semester 1 because that's what I am 1 semester 1 because that's what my examples are. So first and foremost, hopefully you should have seen that you had a required week 1 work because this is one of the last activities in it. And it made you go through all the different activities within this folder. Before, it will let you move on to the next folder. So these two folders, this lab half is, I'm going to make it purple to match the fact that it's the purple one on the checklist. Haha. So the purple one is, the lab half is the purple in the checklist. And then the credit half, and I'm going to change it here, is the yellow in the checklist. So when you start with your lab half, this is just the unit, like what the unit's about. And then this is a funny little picture that usually goes along with the unit. So this lab half has 2 units in it, 2 tests. Unit 1A, which is solving for X, and then Unit 1B, which is functions. In your checklist, you'll see that too. See Unit 1A is the start of this one, and then there's all these lessons in it. Here, let me show you on Schoology. When I open it, you see all the lessons in it, right? If I do it for 1B, here's all the lessons in 1B. So you see all the lessons in there. Same thing on your checklist. Then when I open one of the lessons, I see 4 things. The notes. Let me see, the notes is task 1 here. The worksheet. And then on your checklist, the worksheet's the next task. The challenge question. And on your checklist, it's the next task. And then the quiz question. And then on the worksheet, that's the next task. So Schoology matches your checklist perfectly. So then when you go into this lesson, if you want to skip this lesson because you think, oh, I remember that and I don't want to do all this work, you have to do the quiz question. And if you get a 70% or better on that quiz question, so you have to prove that you know it to at least 70%, then I'll let you skip it and move on to the next lesson to do the same thing. If you don't do well enough, then you'll have to go back and do all of the other parts. Well, let's say you're like, Miss, I remember this whole unit from last year. I might not have passed the class, but I remember the whole unit. Well, then I'll let you come in and do this review activity. And if you do good on the review activity, then I'll let you take the test. And if you get a 70% or better on the test, then you can skip all of this work. So then if you do get a 70% on that test, I'll let you move into Unit 1B. Once you're done with these 2 units, if it takes you the whole quarter, and remember the quarter technically ends in October, that's fine. If you take it longer, it's fine. But if you get done quicker, then you'll move into the credit half, which has all of the yellow classes in it. So Unit 2, 3, and 4, which you can see down in the yellow class, the rest of them. Here's 4. And then you'll take your final at the end of that. And then once you're done with your final, you'll pass this whole semester. IM1 semester 1. Like this whole course, you'll finally have credit for it. And then you get to move on to the next one. Quickly, let's just talk about each little part of a lesson. So the notes are notes in Edpuzzle. So you watch them. So it's my suggestion you get 2 things for the class as far as supplies go. You don't need a calculator because I showed you in Math Tools that there's an online calculator that I'm going to teach you how to use when you need it. But you are going to need I would get yourself either a notebook or a binder with paper because if I were you, I would write everything down and keep it all in order, even though this is all done online because the internet messes things up and sometimes it deletes things and sometimes, and if you don't have it written down, then you don't have it on you. The joy of a notebook is that it keeps it all together, and it could all be just about this class. And so then you can start with the first set of notes. You would just start filling them out exactly the way I'm writing them down on, like within the video. The other resource that I suggest going out to buy besides a notebook for the class is graph paper. Because if you're graphing by hand on a normal lined paper, if your tick marks aren't perfectly spaced, then it gets really, really, really confusing. However, if you buy some grid paper or graph paper, then it looks like this, and it's all perfectly spaced, and it's easy to make a perfectly scaled graph that looks the way it should look. Um, on your tests a lot, they expect you to graph by hand, and they want it to be precise, and so you'll really need graph paper for that. If you're really struggling with getting a hold of graph paper, or you, for whatever reason, you cannot afford it, please let me know. The school has tons of resources that I can do my best to try to deliver to you during these times. No promises. And it would be easier and quicker for you to get it on your own, but if you really need my support, let me know, and I will do what I can to figure that out. Then when you're done with the notes and you turn that in, you'll go do the worksheet. The worksheet process is a little bit different than last year, so I'm going to open this. All right, so when you open the worksheet, there's now multiple ways to do it. So one way is you can still, if you would like, just write all of the work down on a piece of paper. You would take a picture of the work. You would either airdrop it to yourself or email the picture to yourself and get the picture on your computer. Then you would pull the picture into this worksheet at the bottom. And then if once the picture's in there of all the work, you could then go back and press submit on the assignment, and then I'll get it. And so it will be like this. But you do have another option. So up here, look upper right where my mouse is, there should be this little blue icon on your computer. And that is, every Chromebook should have it. And it's something called Equatio. So here's how Equatio works. It is this really cool way to type math onto your screen. For example, if I wanted to do this one, there's handwriting recognition. So let's say I wanted to maybe write 3y squared, and it starts to figure it out for me. So I could do that and insert that. I could also do a voice recognition. So I click the button to start recording. I say 3y squared. Oh, I have to allow up here. See, I was silly. It didn't. This popped up and it says it wants to use your microphone. I have to say yes, allow that. 3y squared plus 3y minus 3xy minus y squared plus 1. And so then, pause it. And there's the math. And I could press insert if I wanted to. I could also edit it because I'm like, no, it's wrong, and come over here and delete some stuff. Like that accidentally appeared. I don't want that. So I could type my math out. Like here, let's say it was wrong, so then I want to do y, and then right here, the equation editor will just let me use the equation, so then I can type. So to make it go up, you use Shift 6, and it makes a little arrow here. I'm going to do it outside of the equation. Shift 6 looks like that, this little up arrow, you see that? But when you're in Equatio typing it, it makes it go up, the little exponents go up there for the squared. So you can type all this stuff in Equatio, and that's super cool because then you can start doing all of your worksheets on the computer because you can start to say out each step and insert it and do the next step instead of having to write it all. So Equatio can be used sometimes. If it's about graphing, you'll still have to be able to make a graph. Like you'd still have to be able to make a graph on a separate sheet of paper and just upload the picture into here because graphing is one thing they really want you to be able to know how to do by hand and not just on the computer. Because you can put a graph in Equatio right here, see graph editor, but it's a cheating graph because if I type the equation, it does the whole thing for me. And so does the other calculator that I have as a resource, but that's not what matters, that you can just copy this. What matters is that you can do it by hand. It's important that you practice graphing by hand. And then when you're all done, you'll just submit the worksheet. So then the third task for every single lesson is a challenge question. And this challenge question takes the concepts and pushes your brain a bit further. It makes it a little more rigorous. It's not like you can't do it with the information given to you, but it's not presented in the exact same way I showed you how to do it in the notes or in the worksheet. It's styled more after like the SAT or MAPS or any of those other big exams. And so it's a little bit harder, which means I would love you to try them on your own first, but if you're confused, I will happily help you with challenge questions. And then the last thing is a quiz question. And the quiz questions are always password locked. So when I click on it, it's going to ask for a password. Um, the password will be whatever your personal password is. So when we had our one-on-ones, I told you what your personal password was. And so whenever you are ready for the quiz, either I will know because I will see that you've done the other three parts and that you've done them well and that you're ready for the quiz, or you'll tell me, and then I'll come in here and check and make sure because you have to do good on these parts for me to be able to move you forward. And if you're not doing well on these parts, then we'll meet and we'll talk and we'll figure it out until you understand it, and then you'll be allowed to do the quiz. Because the quiz is where you show, like, hey, I get this and I'm able to do it by myself. And then you'll be allowed to do the quiz, and then you'll be allowed to move on to the next lesson. When it comes to doing the tests, you'll do your test just like the worksheet. However, it will be locked until you are ready for it. And then I will assign it to you when you're ready for the test. Otherwise, you won't be able to see it. Because of remote learning, the rules of taking a test are I have to change every single test. So you guys have to have different questions, or at least different numbers in the questions. Um, I have to proctor you, which means that we have to be on a Google Meet and you have to be sharing your screen and you have to have your mic on, and I have to be able to like see everything you're doing to make sure you're not cheating throughout the whole test. And then you'll do your test and then you'll submit it to me and then I'll grade it and then you'll be allowed to move on to the next unit. So the final part about class is when you're on this page. So we started at the bottom and started working up which each part was. And we got through the class folders. But at the very top is something called the skill building folder. So this is a lot like the warm-up skills. It's mostly skills from elementary school or middle school that it's important to understand if you want to do well in a high school math class. However, a lot of people at our school missed many years of school or they've forgotten. So this is a section that is important because it's important that you are building up any holes in your education as much as possible. So here's the thing though. Everybody has different holes within their knowledge. So I want you guys to be able to choose which activities you want to work on. So it doesn't matter if you got 100% on everything. You will not pass my class until you do 5 of these. Like it's required, you have to do 5 of these activities. So I'm starting to build these out. And so so far we have things like adding with positive numbers, adding with negative numbers, multiplying with positive numbers, and multiplying with positives and negatives. There's going to be tons more like word problems, fractions, all these elementary skills that you might be a bit weaker in. So what I do is when you're going through the notes of each lesson, I will put in a question that's like maybe like, what's 3 plus 5? And if you don't know the answer, and if you get the answer wrong, I suggest, hey, that it might be a good idea for you to go work on this skill in the skill building folder. So for my class to pass, you have to get at least 5 done. If you have Miss Rosie's class and you want to get credit for her class, to do that, you need to pass my class and do 10 of these skill building activities. All right, so that's how you get credit for her class. And that's the skill building activity section. So that's how this class is going to work. Your next activity to do is the pretest. The pretest, you'll get full points for trying your best on it, for writing down anything you know about the topic of the question you're on. But remember, the more you write, the more I understand about what you understand, so that I know where I need to help you the most.